Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it is an incredibly sad day for the games industry because yesterday, the XDefiant servers officially shut down. The game is completely inaccessible anymore. You can't even boot it up and look at the menus, and a lot of XDefiant fans are left heartbroken by this because the game genuinely was amazing. Sure, it lacked polish. Sure, there were bugs and crappy netcode at times, but the core foundation of the game was incredible, and it was backed by some of the most passionate devs that the shooter genre has ever seen. A lot of the guys working on XDefiant used to work on Call of Duty back in the day. These were the guys who helped make games like Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2. They were a driving force throughout the golden era of the Call of Duty franchise, and I think that was clearly evident when you looked at just how good the maps were within this game. Not only did the art design team do an amazing job, I actually got to talk to one of them in my live stream the other day. That was really interesting, but the overall layout and designs of the maps in XDefiant were top notch. It didn't matter if you were playing Team Deathmatch or Bomb or Escort or Tilt, you always had incredible looking maps that were also very well designed, which is something that Call of Duty has been lacking lately. It seems like with COD, you either get a map that looks good but plays terrible, or it looks awful and boring but actually has some good flow to it. They can never seem to strike gold with Call of Duty maps anymore, despite the fact that they have thousands of developers working on the game and they're backed by a trillion-dollar company, and I think that's proven by the fact that they focus so heavily now on remakes and remasters to pad out the games these days. The XDefiant team was comprised of a lot of those old-school COD guys. They made amazing maps back in 2007, and they made amazing maps all these years later as well. You can't fake the kind of talent that these guys had. I mean, just look at the map list here of the arena maps that we had in XDefiant. Can you honestly say that any of these maps were bad, like genuinely terrible? Because for me personally, Mayday wasn't my favorite, for example. You know, Emporium was probably my least favorite map in the game, but the sheer amount of good to great to straight up amazing maps that we had in XDefiant was freaking astounding. Like, Ubisoft failed with this game. They not only failed themselves by giving up on such a promising title, but they also failed by laying off all the talent that worked on this game. Every single person on the XDefiant team was laid off, despite how much experience they have in this genre and how good they are at their jobs. So now they're going to have to hopefully find work at another studio that actually appreciates their talent, and I'm sure they're going to create some amazing things in the future, though unfortunately, Mark Rubin will not be there with them. Mark took to Twitter to say his final goodbyes about XDefiant, and honestly, he exposed everything that was going on behind the scenes, and he spoke candidly about the downfall of XDefiant. It's a pretty depressing but also very interesting read, so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's just go ahead and jump on into it. So here we can see from Mark Rubin on Twitter, he had a lot to say, so instead of keeping his tweet on screen the entire time, I'm just going to throw up some gameplay on the screen while we read through all of this. He says on Twitter, "It's a sad day for fans of XDefiant and for all the passionate devs that worked so hard on this game. I want to thank everyone who played it and everyone who promoted it, whether you were a big content creator or just a fan. Every voice mattered. In fact, I would say something remarkable happened with this game in that although we had very little marketing, we still had the fastest acquisition of players in the first few weeks for a Ubisoft title just from you guys all talking about and promoting the game. I think they actually hit like 11 million people like within the first week or something, despite the fact that they had no marketing. It was pretty freaking crazy. But getting back to it here, Mark says, but unfortunately, with little to no marketing, especially after launch, we weren't acquiring new players after the initial launch. We had other issues though as well that we tried to be transparent about. For one, we had crippling tech debt using an engine that wasn't designed for what we were doing, and we didn't have the engineering resources to ever correct that. I do personally think that in-house engines are not the valuable investment that they used to be, and they're often doomed to fall behind big engines like Unreal. This tech debt included the dreaded netcode issues that we could just not solve given the architecture we were dealing with. And so for many players with solid network connections and both speed and consistent reliability, the game played well, but if your connection had even the smallest amount of inconsistency, the engine just couldn't handle it and you would have a bad experience. Normally, you should be able to weather those bad moments on your network, but this was a major issue with XDefiant. Another issue we had was having the right resources to make content for the game. What we saw at Season 3 wasn't even enough content in my mind for launch. That's crazy. There were some really cool features coming later in Season 4 or even Season 5 that would have completed the game in a way that I felt it should have been for launch. I can say everyone's heart was in the right place, but we just didn't have the gas to go the distance for a free-to-play game. So again, I really want to praise and salute all the devs that worked on XDefiant. The cards were heavily stacked against you, but you managed to produce a really fun and terrific game. And I like to call it out every time I talk about it, but I think our maps were some of the best maps ever made for an arcade shooter, so congrats to everyone for what they accomplished. I also think we made a pretty decent impact in the space. We saw a lot of reactions from other games to what we were doing, and that to me speaks volumes. I'm really sorry we couldn't quite deliver and maintain this game for a longer time. In case everyone doesn't know, the team behind XDefiant was all let go at the end of last year, and I know many people have moved on to other studios, which is great, and I hope for all of those still looking that they find something quickly. As for me, I've decided to leave the industry and spend more time with my family, so unfortunately, you won't be hearing about me making another game. I do care passionately about the shooter space and hope that someone else can pick up the flag that I was carrying to try to make games again that care about the players, treat them with respect, and listen to what they have to say. Thank you again to everyone who had such passion for XDefiant. So first of all, we have to give a big thank you to Mark Rubin for all the time, effort, and passion that he put into XDefiant. He was the driving force behind that game, and with the help of the other developers like Pat, they really put together something special. It was honestly refreshing to see a studio head like him talk so candidly about the problems that were going on with the game. Like, he wasn't sugarcoating anything, there was no bullshit, he just told it like it is. It's really depressing that he won't be making games anymore. I suppose the door is never completely shut when it comes to that kind of a thing, but he does say he wants to focus on his family, and I can't blame him, right? Because family is always going to come first, but when it comes to game development, he was one of the last of a dying breed. And I hate to always bring it back to Call of Duty, but hey, this is NerosCinema. Think about this for a second. All of the old faces of Call of Duty are just pretty much gone now. I mean, David Vonderhaar made his own studio, and we haven't heard anything about his game in what feels like a year. Robert Bowling, of course, was working with Dr. Disrespect on that Midnight Society game, but then, of course, Dr. Disrespect had that whole scandal, and the studio ended up getting shut down. JD 2020, who used to be the community manager at Treyarch, well, he's pretty much like brainwashed into cryptocurrency and AI now and ChatGPT. It's actually kind of weird. I still follow him on Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, Foxhound FPS, who is the current communications lead for Treyarch, he literally hasn't tweeted in over a year. Jason Blundell, of course, who's basically the Pope of COD Zombies, was let go years ago. Just most of the old guard are gone now, essentially. Like, a few of them are still around, still working on Call of Duty, but I feel like a lot of those guys have just caved in to Activision's desires because ultimately Activision is their boss. I feel like a lot of these guys are just collecting a paycheck now, and XDefiant as a game, as a concept, was something that went so against the tide of gaming, especially the AAA gaming tide, you know. To make a game without having the need to manipulate your fans and to make it fast and fluid and fun, while also working incredibly tightly with the community, was a winning recipe, man. It was set up for so much success, it just needed time and actual backing from their publisher to really get going. If you look at the timeline of everything, it gets even more depressing. So of course we had the initial launch of XDefiant, then we had Season 1, and then eventually they dropped Season 2, which would end up serving as the final real update for the game on September 25th. That means that Season 2 of XDefiant was out for just maybe 1 month's time before Black Ops 6 came out, and then 2 months later, the game was pretty much canned. They never even got to really release Season 3, and the final real season of the game was right before the launch period of Black Ops 6, and we all know a COD launch is always going to be huge, man, and the honeymoon phase is always strong with COD. It was great with Black Ops 6. Look at the relaunch of Verdansk, for crying out loud. Like, the honeymoon phase is crazy when it comes to COD, so realistically, you shouldn't expect XDefiant to really flourish during that time period, right? But reportedly, even during that time, the XDefiant player numbers were doing just fine, but the game was not blowing up or anything like that. And to Ubisoft, that was the problem. They pulled the plug on the game in December, and think about that here, guys. December, literally just weeks before Black Ops 6 fell off a cliff, right before all the player numbers went down, right before everything fell apart, like right before that happened, Ubisoft's like, nah, XDefiant gone. They cut the entire project, right? If they would have waited for the Black Ops honeymoon phase to end and also given them the go-ahead for Season 3, I really think XDefiant would have been just fine. The game got better, believe it or not, every single update. And like Mark said in his tweet, there were still a lot of issues, but the game was improving. If they dropped Season 3 instead of canceling the game and then actually marketed the game, who knows how crazy their numbers would have been, because at that time, people were getting absolutely fed up with Call of Duty. Black Ops 6 is arguably in the worst state ever for a Call of Duty game. If there's ever a time for a competitor to come out, now would be that time, and XDefiant could have already been out, already been set up, and we'd be in like Season 4 or Season 5 by this point, and who knows, with all that time and all that backing, just how many amazing maps, guns, modes, features, factions, and everything else they could have released in that window. All it took was a few short-sighted suits at the Ubisoft offices to pull the plug on this game when they had absolutely no idea just how much they were about to throw away. They didn't understand the position that they were in, win, and ultimately they fumbled what may have been an absolute force within the arcade shooter market. It's honestly just really freaking depressing to think about. Well, ladies and gentlemen, XDefiant is now gone. As much as that pains me to say, it is true, and all that's left are the memories and whatever recordings and videos people have of the game. I'd be curious to see if this game ever gets the Plutonium treatment or the Horizon Modern Warfare treatment with fans making their own servers, and of course, I would love for another publisher to pick up the devs that worked on this game and get them back to work on a new title, because with proper backing, I think it's pretty damn clear that these guys were capable of doing incredible things. I was genuinely looking forward to playing and covering XDefiant for years to come. Despite being a Call of Duty channel and all the challenges that presents when it comes to covering other games, the XDefiant videos were always doing really well. People were genuinely interested in this game and they enjoyed playing it. In fact, the 11 million players that jumped on XDefiant when it first came out, I have a feeling most of them were probably Call of Duty refugees. They're tired of the series, they're tired of the manipulation, they're tired of Activision's bullshit. They wanted an alternative, and XDefiant was going to provide that. In an almost selfish way, I was also looking forward to being able to cover two games at once, because the sheer amount of content alone was going to be crazy, covering both Call of Duty and XDefiant on one channel. But then, of course, Ubisoft happened, Suddenly, updates were very few and far between. Suddenly, XDefiant started to grow stagnant as the devs worked their asses off to finish projects and updates that never eventually saw the light of day. Right about the time Black Ops 6 came out, it was almost like Ubisoft started to preemptively pull the plug, because updates at that point started to become incredibly rare up until the announcement of the game being canceled. The crazy part is, had they just waited a couple of months, they were going to be in a prime position to completely shake up the shooter market, man. Black Ops 6 was about to have a historic downfall, and they pulled the plug right before that happened. And because of that, I think XDefiant is going to go down in history as the game that could have been. It will be fascinating to see how this game gets covered and remembered in the future. I am looking forward to all the video essays coming out from my fellow content creators talking about the game, and I'm also really looking forward to hopefully seeing some proper interviews from the developers in the future talking about what it was like behind the scenes and the restraints that they had on themselves while creating XDefiant. If any of those devs are watching this video and would like to just sit down and have a chat sometime, I would absolutely love to do so, because you guys did an amazing job with this game. And the final thing I want to say here in this video is I truly hope that everybody who worked on XDefiant is able to find work elsewhere after getting laid off. Having that happen is always terrible, but then having it happen to a game like this while also doing it right before Christmas was an absolutely diabolical move on the part of Ubisoft. So best of luck to all the hardworking men and women who created this game, and hopefully wherever you end up, they appreciate you for the talented individuals you are, and you can get back to creating amazing experiences for your fans. As for me, I suppose I still have a ton of XDefiant footage saved up, so I think I'm going to sprinkle that footage into videos over the course of the next year or so whenever I feel it's warranted, because I'm truly going to miss this game, and if you made it this far into the video, then I know you are as well. It's truly a sad day for the games industry, and on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap things up here today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Be sure to sub if you're new around here. Thank you so much for listening and for continued support of my channel, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.